Welcome, Stealing the Mind podcast. I have another guest here. Today we have William Wang. Probably one of the few people in my life where I can have a conversation with this guy, and the trajectory of my path can change within an instant. Will, I've worked with him before, and what I know from him is he can lead an army of 150 plus dudes into war. So I want you guys to get a lot of value out of this, and welcome, my brother. Welcome, Will.
Thank you, Connor. It's good being on your podcast. I think it's gonna be a fun time. I'm looking forward to the conversation, man.
Wonderful. So I wanna make this episode pretty intense. So let's jump right into this. Let me begin with this statement that I heard that sparked ideas from me the other day. The faster you learn, the more you earn. What story pops up in your head as I make that statement, Will?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it comes with the famous I think starter methodology, right? All the time is that like you want to fail fast because I think a lot of times we approach startup the same way about like school. You think that like I already have the textbook and I just got to study the textbook to get a good grade. But I think a lot of times in the startup world, especially when you're inventing something new, how do you know something works? You don't. Right, so you want to fail fast to learn to approach as quickly as possible. I can
Mm,
use my own example with my other co-founder Ryan. When we first started our first startup, we just assumed that we knew everything about the customer. We built out the product, and we ended up getting burned. Why? Because a lot of times you don't know what the customer really wants. The only way is by launching a product or talking to them at a great degree to find out. So you want to fail fast and you want to break your hypothesis. Instead of thinking about, in a way, Ryan and I talk a lot about this, is that instead of thinking as like this is the right way of doing it, it's that everything is a hypothesis. How do I validate it? How do I test it? And if it doesn't work, if it's the wrong idea, I'm not hurt by it. I just feel fast. So at least I get those learnings in as quickly as possible.
wow, there's so many points we can go from there. I do want to start with the failing fast methodology, right? We learn, and when we learn, we're going to put whatever we learn into action, and that's where we're going to fail. What were kind of like the first few things getting into business or even just like getting into adult life okay, here's the question. Did you intend to fail fast or did you have to learn it?
I think all of us have to learn it, right? Because it goes against what you traditionally like how we're wired. Like why do you want to fail? Like none of us wants to fail. We all want to be this genius and be successful on the first try and different things like that. But the truth is every successful person we know have failed many times, right? And I'm not talking about big failures as in the whole company collapse. As in like they are wrong on a lot of company decisions, but I think a good entrepreneur is able to de-risk themselves and know what risks to take and not take, right? So even if they're wrong, it's not bad. Also, they surround themselves with very smart people around them. So what ends up happening is that even if they're wrong, like they have like good debates with each other, then they can come to the best solution. And even if they're wrong, it's already de-risked, right? So failing fast, I think, is the only way. You have to fail fast because again, you can't be wrong. We all want to be right, but I think it's something we all have to learn to do. We have to actively try to do to not let the ego get in place, so we can make the correct decisions. Yeah.
Mm, I like that. I like how you brought up ego because like a lot of us it's we always want to be right, and when it's our idea, we want our idea to be right, and we want our target audience to buy our idea. But it comes to the
hmm
point where we get to that gate, and we're like, dude, why is no one buying our shit, or what's wrong with our product? And it's at that point when we get to talk with our mates and be like, yo, what did we do wrong? What did we just fail that we can get better? um, the way that I like to look at it as well is I like to be impatient to do the hard things first, right? Because if we can do the hard things first, then we can fail. So in my eyes, I obsess with the inputs rather than considering the results. What does the
hmm
framework look like when you're at task with these hard things that you're potentially gonna fail, but you have to do it? What's the framework that goes through your mind?
Well, yeah, I think every time you start a company, right? Like, let's say I'm in the software industry, so every time I start a new software, it's like, okay, I think first off, you just gotta mentally prepare yourself that you will be wrong because that is part of it, right? And I think the second thing is that like I kind of look at everything as a hypothesis, as in like
Mm,
you think, okay, the product is, let's say right now we're using this platform Riverside, right, for podcasting. Instead of thinking that like I need about all these features, you go talk to your customers directly because the customers will tell you what they want. Connor, just like when you're doing your cold calls, right? The customers, the seller will tell you what their struggles are. But if you keep talking all the time, you're never gonna get really know their struggles, and you can't relate to them. Then you can't hit on the right point. Similar to when I'm building a product, I let the customer talk because when I hear stuff, I can pick up on it. So you talk to a good amount of customers, so you start picking up on certain things like, why am I hearing this consistently? Okay, this must be very, very important. Then we go build the first prototype to be as lean as possible so we can test out those theories. And when people request stuff, if I keep seeing the same pattern, it's just about really recognizing different patterns of what keeps showing up and addressing those issues. Yeah.
A lot of systems there. How does someone that's, let's say someone that's watching this, they're kind of newer to business, like how should they intentionally fail fast, or at least like get in front of people so they can get their case studies and understand their
Yeah.
product?
Do you have like a particular business? Are we talking about software or like
Let's
different
just say
things like
service. Let's just say service based
service based? Okay.
marketing or something like that.
Can you repeat the question one more time? Just want to make sure stay on track with it. Yeah.
How does someone new to business intentionally fail fast and get in front of their audience to get the answers that they want or that they need to know to run a successful venture?
Yeah, like a service-based business. I think the key thing, like with failing fast too, you can also say it's just basically moving fast, right?
Hmm.
And I think moving fast is a very important thing. Is that we all want to. What ends up happening, I think, with first-time founders or like people who are going to businesses, that they're like, what should my logo be? What should my business plan be? What should the business name be? The truth is, none of that really matters. It's about how much value you bring, right? So the first thing you got to realize is that like, what are the biggest pain points of my customers?
Hmm.
What keeps them up at night? What are their fears? And I'm not talking about the second, third, fifth, sixth pain point. What is the biggest pain point? In software, right? I think everyone's always talking about you got to solve a hair on fire problem. Because if you solve a problem that's too low in your list, they're not gonna want to the necessity to buy is a lot lower. What they always say is this, right? Don't sell vitamins, sell like the painkillers. You know what I mean? Because vitamins aid to stuff, but you want to sell the painkillers that takes people's pain away, because that's what people really pay the money for. So I think really focus on finding out what the customers want and what are their needs and different things like that, and really dive deep into that and simply just go talk to them. Like, just talk to people. I think just listen instead of like focusing on like the business logo, name, business plan, all that stuff like that. Obviously spend some time with it too as well. You don't want to look horrendous, but those things really don't matter as much. And if you really look at what a lot of times first time founders focus on, they focus on the wrong thing because they can't be hurt from it. It's hard talking to people to be proven wrong. It's hard cold calling, right, Connor? It's very hard in the beginning. It's hard for me to reach out. You got to put your ego away. What's the easy stuff that makes you look good? What's my logo? What's my marketing plan? All these things you can't be hurt from. You can only be hurt when you put your stuff out in the world. But ironically, that is the most important thing, is that you have to put yourself out there to actually, build a business and be able to reach a whole nother level. Yeah.
I love that. What pops up in my mind as you say that is the most successful people or the highest achievers, one thing that they are not comparable with is their pain tolerance, right? At the end of the day, the top producers, they compete, they're pretty much all identical, but what they compete with is who can tolerate the most pain, or who can go through the hardest thing and come out on top with a new thing, with a new life, with a new mindset. How did that come out for you? I mean, you're so young. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're 23, right?
24. 24.
You're 24. Where did that come from you, where like you have to go through that pain now, and like how do you endure all of that at this age?
Yeah, of course. I think it's a desire, right? I think when you first off, I think it's just fun for me to like build business with, like, I have a great team. I have two great co-founders, Ryan and Gyeong, like both guys I enjoy so much working with, who also work well with me because we know how each other works. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of like, if you really look at it, if you look at this is how I like to see it. If you really look at when you should start a company, in my opinion, the earlier stage is the best if you look at the pros and cons, right? Because the cons is that when you get older, what happens is that you have more commitments, and commitments really scare me.
Mm.
You have a kid, you have a family, and also societal pressure gets larger and larger because like everyone's making more money, so now you're like, I better have my stuff together. When you're younger, sure, you might be less experienced in a way, but you have the most time, you have the less amount of commitment, you have the less amount of pressure in a way. The pressure only gets larger if you start a company later. So also I will
Mm.
make the argument that when you work in a corporate world versus starting a company, I think there are certain correlations, but I don't think there's any better way than learning about how to start a company by starting one. And the second thing is that I think we all have to go through pain. I think Ryan and I talk a lot about this is that if it, as cheesy as it sounds, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? You have to kind of pay that price of going through it. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is that you learn a lot through the journey. You learn a lot that, like, the pain is actually learning, but learning is hard. So when you're learning, consistently learning, getting pushed, you feel a lot of that high pressure, right? So it's kind of like the rite of passage. Because if you've never gone through the pain, what makes you different from somebody else? Like, what makes you know more than somebody else? Like Connor, like when you first started to now, you're probably like, I totally know why for the first 7 months I never got a deal. But you have to go through that pain. But those pains are actually good because you're learnings, right? So I think it's really about reframing your mindset to be like, okay, I'm paying the price. I'm learning about different things right now.
I like that. Um, what Will is saying is pretty much that pain, hard, difficulty. It's a prerequisite to have the pursuit of life. And I like to refer this back to the Bible that I'm reading. It says, God says, the right path is the narrow path, not the wide, because everyone goes the wide path. You want to go through the narrow path. And that resonates with me, what you say so much, Will, because I'm only 20 years old and I'm going through problems that I don't even know if 30-year-olds go through my problem, right? And I feel it's so freaking hard, and I feel like I'm working 13, 14 hours, and I feel like no one understands me. But I do know at the end of the day when I'm in my bed, like I'm happy that I'm going through this pain. I'm excited to go through this pain. I don't know what's coming tomorrow, but what's going to happen is it's only going to make me stronger, and it's going to just build my muscles in my mind to be impeccable when it comes to more problems. Do you go through that same thing? And tell me about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's easy for us right now to say on this call, right? Like, oh, gotta go through pain and stuff. Like, yeah, we get beat up, man. You get tired of getting punched, man. Sometimes you lay in your bed, you're rolling around. You're like, why is my life so hard? You have those moments too. But at the same time, too, is like this is like what we signed up for, right? Like, no one's like putting a gun
Mm.
against my or your head to do it. I signed up for this. I chose this path, and I can quit anytime if I really want to. That's the truth. If I don't enjoy it, but why am I still in it? Because you see the end vision, right? I think a lot of times with people is that they want the best of all worlds. You want the safety, you want the consistency, which is a great thing, by the way, of the corporate 9 to 5, which is not bad. But you also want the upgrowth of potentially of starting a business. So which one is it? You have to pick your pain. Every path has a pain, but it's a different pain, and you just got to find which one is more tolerable to you. And at the same time too, like what you said earlier, Connor, is that you're like working 13, 14 hours a day. And obviously I work very long hours too. And sometimes people ask you, why do you work so hard? And it's like, if you want to be at another level, right? I'm not gonna look at someone who's working, let's say, in construction right now, because that's not my interest. I'm gonna look at, let's say, tech startup founders at a young age. What do they do? And the majority of them started a company at a very young age. So obviously I'm gonna follow that because that is what I want. You probably look at the people you follow and you realize that they all started at a really young age. I'm gonna follow that. And a lot of times you look at successful people, unless they inherited it, majority of them work very long hours because you get there faster, and also because they love their work, right? So obviously we followed that framework because it seems to have worked out well for many other people.
Completely. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's work for us. Like we're doing hard. We're not doing labor work, but we're doing hard work that's making our mind twist and turn. But we see this as like life. Like it's our excitement, it's our passion, and we see the angle. The angle is greater than where we're at right now. We just know that since it's hard right now, that means it has to be easier on the other side. So speaking of vehicles of hard, right? You said you can go the corporate route, it's hard. You can go the business route, it's hard. You can go the labor, work, construction, that's hard. It's all hard. I want to get even deeper into like the business aspect of different vehicles. You're in the startup, the software as a service business and industry. How did you get to that place? Because that's like in my head, that's like over the top already, and I'm doing another business. I'm like, yo, that's too much.
Yeah, I think definitely naiveness in the beginning. I think a lot of times business people in the beginning always think everyone's like, oh, I can start a software company. So I was kind of like the treasure for my fraternity, and I was like, I want to start a software company. So I found a developer. We started working together, but I didn't program at the time. And throughout time, I was just like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought to start an application and different things like that. And another team member, my brother, Ryan joined the team and we learned programming together. So we have more development power and different things like that. But I think how I kind of got into it is this: I saw a problem, I just want to solve it. I think I always been an entrepreneur. In middle school, I sold corn nuts, and high school, I did a lot of sneaker reselling with those whole bots and like proxies, different IP address, all that stuff. But it's just like a lot of times, like if I see there's an opportunity for money, that always interests me. Don't get me wrong, and also just the need to solve a problem. I like solving problems. I think at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are problem solvers, right? We see a problem, like to solve it. But some people aren't entrepreneurs, and that's not bad either. They just don't like solving the problems, and I think it just depends on the person. Yeah.
I like that. It shows that what you said in the beginning. You were quite naive when it comes to starting getting into the industry you are right now, and I see that in almost every entrepreneur I work with. Like we are so determined, and nothing can stop us until we see literally $0 in the bank. That's what's going to stop us. For some of us, it won't even stop us then. We're going to go into debt for our business. We're going to do this to stay alive underwater. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I, I also do. I think it's just like you enjoy it, right? I think Elon Musk said it one time in a video. He talked about how like it's like having a child. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you're not gonna feed the kid?
Mm.
I can't really describe why to you. I think it's just I just really enjoy it. And I think it's also a blessing. People think, oh, it's so bad. Like, why are you so obsessed? But I think isn't it so great to have something that you care so much for, that you will sacrifice so much for, to work for? I also do want to put on the other side too, is that like also but I want to make it clear to the entrepreneurs, also know what risk you're taking, man. Sometimes, you know what I mean. Like, going to debt is a very scary thing, and sometimes if you go into debt, you might not be able to think straight. Everybody has different pain tolerance level. Also know what you're risking too as well, because you can always go, work on a job and then come back to working on a company, on your own company and different things like that. But personally, obviously, I love the path. I don't really know what to tell you, Connor. I just enjoy it. I love it. It's just a mission, a burning desire inside of me that I have to go for every time, every day.
Wonderful. One quote that pops up in my head. It was actually said by Tristan Tate. To be great.
Hmm.
No, I said that wrong. To be good, you have to love it. To be great, you have to be obsessed over it. And I
Hmm.
totally connect with that all the time because I'm completely obsessed with my business. I'm obsessed with my journey and what's to come. Let's pivot really quickly, and let's get deep into where all of this mindset and charisma, where did it come from, Will? I know you were big time. I know you were very active in school. You were very active in a bunch of organizations. Where did this like fire come from?
I can't really speak about the fire. I think the fire, I guess, kind of has always been inside of me. It's just, I think some people just have it or don't. I really do believe in that. I think you either have or you don't, or you kind of go through, you hit really rock bottom, and you're like, fuck
Hmm.
this, like this is not what I want. I deserve better, and you kind of have a bounce backness. You know what I mean? But I think I always have that fire inside of me, and obviously some experiences that do motivate me as well. And I think regarding like the public speaking aspects, I think it's just about like what we should do. When you're young, you should try to do as quickly as possible is like figure out what you want to be good at. So there are a couple things that I know I want to be good at, and I think I also naturally are better at than other folks. Is one of is public speaking. So I purposely put myself in a lot of public speaking settings because the key thing is that you have to be in those settings to get those reps in, right? So a couple positions I put myself, at least in college, was that I was president for my fraternity, so I had to talk a lot to the people all the time. President for student government, I had to talk a lot. I had to come. I had to be. I applied to be the commencement speaker for my graduation. And even though I was nervous doing those things, I forced myself to do it because I know I had to get those reputations. So when I have those big moments, I will be ready, right? And the second one, I thought that well, I was like, I think I can be a pretty good leader. I think leadership is something that interests me, but I think leadership is a little trickier. The office never seeks the man. You put in the work, and if you get chosen, you get chosen. So I had to find things that I really do enjoy doing. One of them was my fraternity at the time, right? So I put a lot of time into my fraternity, and then eventually I was elected as president. So I was able to work the leadership and really see that aspect of things. Yeah.
Yeah, pressure makes diamonds. A story I have in mind that has to do with Will is I was going to run for a position for this organization we're part of, and I did not want to do it. I was not confident. I was a freshman. I was young. I never talked in front of 20 plus people unless it was my classmates. Now, this was a party of like 100 plus people. And Will, I don't even know if you did. I don't even know if you know you did this, Will, but it was 3 hours before this thing or 4 hours. And Will called me. He said, "Go, yo, Connor, you need to get up there and you need to talk." And I was like, sitting there, and guys, Will is my mentor in college, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, how can I let this guy down? How can I be so unprepared? It's 3 hours before this thing. Now I need to memorize something, a speech where I could at least talk about myself for 45 minutes and how I'm valuable. And that pressure that Will put me under, and guys, you guys won't even understand, but I literally had one eye. A week before that, I got something happened to my eye in a soccer game. I had one eye. I was standing up there like this, um, nervous. Everyone's older than me, and I'm just standing up there and I'm just speaking. And I felt my flow up there, even though it wasn't a perfect execution. But that pressure there made me so much stronger. And I just want to say while we're up here, thank you, Will, for putting me through that because I'm probably in this position right now, standing here because of that. And
No, yeah, I think no. Thank you, Connor, for going for me. I think a lot of times like I think what we fear the most, what keeps up us not is the things that we should do. Like even I still do this. There's one like I don't want to do this. Like whatever's on my mind, a lot of times you just got to go tackle. You got to do it right. If you want to become a better public speaker, you just got to go for it. Everybody wants to be better at something, but they don't want to put in the work for it. You have to be bad at something first. You have to be embarrassed about it. You have to fail at something to be good at something. And I applaud you, man, for going up on that stage despite being nervous and only having one eye at the time.
yeah, humiliation is a great motivator, right? Do you ever use that with you and your buddies? You guys, kind of press on each other's buttons to like push each other further. Do you experience that?
Yeah, I think definitely basketball. You know what I mean? Like I think sports is a very common one, right? Like you kind of got to press a little bit on each other, right? I think that's a lot of times how men communicate in the way too. Obviously, not past a certain point as well. Yeah.
I like that. With me and my brothers, like we're not constantly hitting each other's ego, but we are pressuring each other intentionally so that we can get better. And it's tough, right? Your brother's doing something and he does something good. He comes back, he says, "Yo, why you sitting down? What are you doing? I just did X,
Mm.
Y, and Z. Why you relaxing?" And it really just
Yeah.
hits my ego all the time. Like, yeah, I shouldn't be sitting down. I should be here working with you, or I should be, you know, pushing some iron right now. So I have a
Mhm.
lot of experience with that, and I want to even go deeper into the past. Will, you're an only son, right?
Yes, I am.
So how did you surround yourself with competitive people and good people with integrity, and how did you assimilate through a brotherhood environment when you kind of lacked that as you grew up when you were like, 6, 7, 8, 9?
I think my mom was been a pretty strong woman, but I think growing up I definitely been more on the feminine side, to be frank with you, because I'm not too close with my dad too as well, so I didn't really have any like male figures to follow. But I think what really changed me was kind of just like when I joined a fraternity in college. You kind of realize that men communicate differently sometimes. You know what I mean? Like men either for the better or the worse are kind of like different creatures sometimes, right? Like, so I was like, oh wow, so guys are kind of like this. So I think with the brotherhood environment, I really kind of got it from the fraternity because I had older guys that I looked up to that kind of mentored me, took me under the wing, and not just like the fraternity gave me a lot. They gave me guys that I like the term called like being 15 minutes ahead of you. So you want to have different levels of mentor. You want to have the old guy, the let's say the 50, 60-year old, 70, 80 old guy father figure. You also want to have something more in the 30 to 40 range, but you also want guys who are just 1 or 2 years ahead of you because they can really relate to you. Because sometimes when we get older, we kind of forget how we were in the past. Like I probably can't give the best advice to an 80-year old right now. Maybe a 10-year old can give better advice to him because he has been in his shoes and he's not that much ahead of him. So the fraternity in a way really gave me those three levels of mentors that I was able to learn from.
Tell me more about that mentorship. I'm so big in mentorship, and when I come across someone that I truly relate with and I understand and they understand me, I do everything in my ability to get in front of them and just say, "Hey, I look up to you, bro. I look up to you and I trust you and I'm going to tell you some of these real things that I'm going on with my life and I hope that you can, help me out with what I'm doing." How has mentorship like shaped you um, going down from your 60-year-old mentor to I don't even know what mentors you have, but tell me about them.
Yeah, I mean mentorships are so important. I think you want someone to, because the truth is you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what you don't know. Like certain things you just have to go through life to understand. And I'm still very young. I'm 24, so a lot of the older mentors have told me stuff. And even a lot of times that you might disagree with, I think it's important to keep on the back of your mind. Because a lot of times you look back and be like, wow, they were right, but I was too young to understand that. But what ends up happening is that when those situations do come up, you're like, okay, I actually kind of know what's going on because I have at least heard of it before. So I'm not just kind of blindsided by certain different situations or how to feel. And I think having older mentors saves you a lot of pain versus you learning these things, right? Is that if you can learn from other people and at least have uh know that something is coming, that will help you a lot to be able to absorb the pain or learn about yourself and different things like that. Because again, a lot of times, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you have to go through life. That's why there's things called experiences, right? You can't really trump experiences a lot of times, and you can't get that by going through everything yourself. You can save yourself a lot of pain by learning from your mentors and other folks that obviously are like-minded individuals.
How do you so when I get advice from my mentor, I try to cross analyze it. So I'll look at my other mentors, I'll ask them the same questions, and I'll see if there's a um, similarity in the answers I get. And then I try to test it at my best ability at a micro level. How do you test someone's um, validity or answer to your question when they're your mentor? And the reason I ask this is because a lot of people like we're getting information all day and from people older than us that have a lot more experience. But some of us just like we don't integrate it into our life, and I just sometimes question like, yo, why you've been told that, or I told you that, Reed, my younger brother, I told you that, Reed. Like, what? Why didn't you do X, Y, and Z when I told you? How does that work for you when you're retrieving info from them?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So the first thing I think, Connor, is that when I mentor guys, a lot of times, right? Like people will live their life the way they want to. I my job is to kind of maybe share my perspective if they want me to share. Then I'll share my perspective, but it's up to them to do it if they want. I think a favorite quote, I forgot, I saw it on an Instagram reel, but someone said this I thought was really great. Is that it's like um, you keep trying to change people, right? But that's not your job. That's God's job to change people. It's not my job to fully change somebody. It's me to like if they ask me for my advice, I'll give my advice to the best of my ability. But it's not my job to change them. And regarding the mentor aspect, I think it's also important to know who you're getting mentorship from, right? So the first thing
Hmm.
I look for is that number one, the similarity between me and the person. And the second thing I look for really is that how credible are they? Because just because someone's older doesn't mean they're more credible, and doesn't mean they're dumb. Maybe they're credible in the fitness aspect, but not on business. Maybe they're credible with the family aspect. They can be a great dad, but a bad businessman. But they can also be a very great businessman, but a horrible family man, right? So I try to try to put people into these different categories to see, okay, what are they good at, what are they bad at? Because no one's good overall. That's just not really possible. So that's the first thing. So let's say if I'm looking for business now, obviously I'm looking for good businessmen that have done great jobs. I start to look at each of the different one of these. Let's say I talk to 10 businessmen. I try to pick out, let's say 9 out of 10 all said this one thing. I kind of know that now. I'm kind of in my brain, I label as law. Okay, I should definitely follow this because if everyone's saying it, that's very important. Then I look at other things that maybe more I'm like 50-50 about, I'm not too sure about, right? I look at what has happened to them before. I look at what industry they're in and what has happened to them before. Maybe some people are very aggressive on one point of view, but that's because they got kind of traumatized by something, a certain experiences. So I need to make sure and see their background of why they're coming up with these things along with their background, right? So I kind of cross reference it that way. And then the rest is up to yourself, man. You know, it's your life, right? So you kind of take the advice that you want to take because at the end of the day, only you know yourself the best. Nobody knows yourself better than yourself, right? So at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, this is good advice, this is bad advice. But all this doesn't really happen like subconsciously. It's kind of just letting the mind run and just kind of absorbing different things. Kind of happens naturally, but if you really want to break it down to steps, I think that's the best way I can put it.
I like that a lot because I want to ponder on this point. One time, Will, you remember this conversation? I came back and I used to like this one businessman, this one influencer, and I was kind of adopting a lot of his ways of life and just his thoughts. And just because I liked him so much. And Will, you sort of checked me and you're like, yo, I know you like this guy, but you have multiple mentors. You don't need to adapt everything or adopt everything from this mentor that he's telling us. You can pick and choose. And that just opened up the blinds in front of my eyes, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I can grab this from Alex Hermosi. I can grab this from Andrew Tate. I can grab this from Andy Elliott. And I just started to be able to become such a better man because I had multiple people's insights and perspectives and knowledge and information on my life, and I was able to better it. I like that story because I think just a lot of people nowadays, we have a celebrity, and mine now is I'll say it's Jesus, but a lot of people we have a celebrity or a god that they follow, and they are their identity. How do you think people get lost in that?
I think people get lost in that a lot, man. You know, I think especially young guys, right? I think young guys, what we want to do is that we want to sound smart. I recently got to dinner with my co-founder, and we met this young individual, and you can tell that none of his thoughts are original. He is just repeating what he has saw on Instagram and just oh, this is good, this is good. So you know, people notice those things, right? I think a lot of times what we have to do is that we just have to take a step back and be ourselves too, because that is a unique advantage. And it sounds cheesy when I was young. I was like, what does that even mean? You know, is that like take a step back, man? Just be yourself. At the end of the day, we just want to connect with other people that are authentic. Like right now, me and you, Connor, I'm just being authentic. I'm just telling you how things are. But if I'm getting on this call and I'm saying a bunch of influencer stuff, you're gonna call me out. You're gonna be like, I can tell, man. Like that's not good. And if you want to think even from more of a business standpoint, is that like okay, you're saying what I mean, at the same time, we're always learning from other people. So, like, I'm sure something I said has been found in the books already as well, right? But let's talk about social media in particular. Is that like, if let's say Alex Hermosi has said this online already, if you say it again, you're not gonna get clicks anyway. Like, Hermosi said it already. People already heard that. You got to come up with something original, right? So, I think the key thing is really to take what you like from different individuals, and at the end, you know, try to add your little own little sauce on it, man. Like, be yourself still. Be influenced by other people, but don't let it become your identity because you're never going to be able to win that way because there's already that individual out there. You can't be a better Hermosi than Alex Hermosi is. Just like I can't be a better Connor Rueca, you can't be better Will Wang because how is that possible? So something to keep in mind, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I saw it with myself like a lot because with my obsessive personality, it's like, oh my goodness, I really like this guy. He's saying what I believe. He's saying what I know and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm just gonna adopt his thoughts, and it's so easy. So my next
Easy.
question is, where are you getting your information besides the mentorships? Are you going to books? Are you watching specific people on YouTube, social media? How are you acquiring your information, despite mentorship and experience?
Yeah, so I think mentorship experience is a very big one, right? I think I like podcasts a lot. Like I like my startup stuff. I listen to this podcast called How I Built This a lot. So I like kind of neutral stuff a lot. What do I mean by that? Is that I think we should look at our mind all kind of like it's like an algorithm, Like at least the business, we're trying to make sure like can we consistently get the right choices, and I need to feed my brain enough data to make the right choices. So why do I like how I built this? In this podcast, it talks about how business got started. They interviewed the founders, like DoorDash, from the beginning to the end of like where they are right now. I'd rather hear your story and your experiences than I can grab the data I want, because those aren't like, unless sometimes they're unreliable narrators, right? But like the story usually is pretty consistent. So I don't want to look at what you say. I want to look at what you do, because the action is more powerful than the words. So I like to read things basically about like more like story form or how people came to be, assuming they're a reliable narrator, because I can see their experiences. I think that's really the value is at. So I can also have my own thoughts with it rather than just hearing what people say. Because people might say the wrong things on purpose because they want certain advantages. They might not be honest because their ego or different things like that. But usually through storytelling, it's a very a better data point in my opinion. So I like that podcast a lot, and obviously consuming resources that are more story form rather than people telling me what to do in a way.
Interesting. I'm a big podcast guy. I kind of slowed down on it. I honestly, like, to be completely front with everyone listening, and you will. I've been slowing down a lot on just acquiring more information. So I do need to get back on the podcast. I definitely do need to read. Do you read?
I don't read as much. I do want to, and I think Connor to really talk about this too is kind of like, well, I'm grinding, let's say 12, 14 hours of my business a day. I used to be like, I need to read more. Well, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? I'm exhausted. I spent all my business hour coding and handling support requests, all these things I can't. So if you want to be in a learning phase, so I'm not saying don't learn, you also have to take a step back because something needs to give. You only have so many productive hours right in a day. You can't be unreasonable with yourself, and I think that happens a lot with high achievers. Is that like you got to be reasonable in a way too, right? So I do want to be able to spend some time soon, maybe when business gets to another level, or having a year or two. I think a year is a good time. Sam Altman did something like that. So the founder of OpenAI, right? What he did was when he sold his first company, I think he had a whole gap year, and he said that was one of the most valuable experiences that he had because he was able to learn all the stuff that he wanted to learn, and those things pay dividends in the future. Because there will be times where you need to be in learning phase again. I think I want to reach to another level. I think obviously I'm still learning here and there, but a lot of advice I hear are very consistent now. And Ryan and I talk is like, okay, that's good to add to our data points that we're probably doing the right thing. But right now, I just gotta go do the hardest thing, and that's to fucking do the task. And that's hard. It's like you can watch a bunch of cold calling calls all day, but the hardest thing is that I gotta pick up the phone and start dialing people. If I don't do that, I won't get better at it, right? That's why you're probably not reading so much. You know what you have to fucking do right now. But if you're starting a new business, let's say in a different industry, you know that you got to learn first because you don't want to make those bad mistakes. So I think I'm not saying not to learn, but what I'm saying is that sometimes when you're in the grind, don't be too hard on yourself if you're not reading, because if you got 10 deals to handle, you're gonna handle the deals first. Let's make that money first, right?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't even know about that Sam Altman story. That's kind of crazy to think about. At his level, with the knowledge he has, he took just a year off and just like studied and stuff like that. That's like some philosopher kind of stuff.
And yeah, it happens a lot too. Like when he first sold his company, so he was younger too when that happened, right? But
Oh
like
wow.
people were like sick of like asking like, "What are you doing?" And he kind of gets hurt. People kind of walk away because when they hear that you're not doing anything new, they're kind of like, "Is it?" A lot of times people are mean, man. It's pretty transactional. It's just kind of what can I get from you? But I think it's really important to be able to just again, man, put the ego away. Egos, I think, is a common thing in the podcast we keep talking about, and just be able to just be like, you know what, this I believe this is the right thing, and just do the right thing, and not let like your emotions get in the way of it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble right now just taking that time off. And I've been in this hustle mode for freaking okay, I haven't been in business for years, but like I've been in this hustle mode for like 9 to 12 months now. And I'm not burning out, but I'm starting to see that I am losing in some facets of business or some facets of life because I'm not learning. And this connects all the way back to a point that we always talk about. It's the hustle culture. And for
Hmm.
me, I don't know if it's my body, I don't know if it's my mind. I feel like I cannot stop and I can keep going. And for other people, they truly do get burnt out. What is your kind of take on this culture of we have to hustle now and we have to keep hustling until we make that $1 million or until we reach that goal?
Yeah, I think a lot of times these movements at a core is fantastic, and you can name a lot of different movements too. That I won't go into that. This happens too, but let's use the hustle culture as an example. Is that the baseline of it is really good, right? To work hard, you will get rewarded, American dream type of stuff. But what ends up happening is that like the extreme people hijack the movement. So they're not telling you you should not sleep ever and you should be working like forever, like all this like crazy stuff. Like, all right, let me tell you why that doesn't work. Because that is assuming that success comes with being a sprint. And but the truth is, this thing is a marathon. If I can work for 2 weeks and be successful and not sleep, I'll do it. Most people will do that. But that's the easy part. Most people can do a sprint. The hard part is that can I do this for a year, 2 years, 3 years, consistently, 12 hours a day? But in order to do that, I need to be able to get my sleep. I will get my 8 hours of sleep. I'm a very big person on that because what I also believe is that when you're tired and cranky and angry, you don't make good decisions, and you shouldn't make decisions that way. So I think we should work hard, but we should look at it as in like, is this sustainable too at the same time? And that also goes with different relationships. Obviously, I make sacrifices. Like you can't always be spending time with your girlfriend and different things like that. But in moderation is always good. You kind of know what the balance is. Like I shouldn't sit here and tell you what the balance is, but I can tell you one thing though from the hustle culture. What they say is that like you got to cut everybody off and go in the dark is probably not the best solution. I don't personally agree that's good. I think we all need a human touch with. Also, I definitely don't agree with you should only sleep 3 hours a day or you're wasting time. No, I'll get my 8 hours, but my 12 to 14, if I'm working, I'll make it very, very productive and very good hours and make the right decisions rather than having a lack of sleep and feeling like shit because I don't want to feel like shit. Who does, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, it's a lot of movements. It's a lot of cultures that come on, and the top elites of that specific culture, they do hijack it. And it's funny. I literally heard Andrew Tate say the other day. I kind of agree with it, but it's you think about it twice, and it's like, hold on. This is what he says. He says the best shortcut in life is to never miss a day, because some days you will be lucky. So if you never miss a day, you'll never miss a lucky day. Now, I believe in that at the end of the day, right? You do get your lucky days where you're closing deals, you're getting this many leads, you get your first call, or you get a yes. But it's like working every day on something, that's literally asking for a burnout. And that's literally him telling everyone, like, don't stop working, like, keep going and be a slave to your work. And that's my mentors told me this recently. You're like, yo, Connor, you're becoming a slave to your work. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me about that. And he goes, look at your physiology. How many meals are you getting per day? Two, one. Connor, how many hours are you getting to sleep a day? Six. How many times are you spending on your 1% better task, which is just reading something or watching something? 2 times a week. How many waters are you drinking every day? Two. And it's like, oh my goodness, I'm actually stuck in this. I wouldn't say it's a rabbit hole, but it's like a never-ending hamster wheel, and it's like,
And yeah, and I guess give a different perspective too. And this is not, I guess, advice we can always give everybody because I do believe a lot of times people are lazy. So, me and Ryan kind of came with this new thing. It's like I believe in structure. I really believe in structure. The past a year and a half, I've been very structured. What time I wake up, what time I work, what day I work, what time I eat, everything's like that. But what I realized is that like I don't really need that. Like, as in, like, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I can work on the hours I want to, despite unless let's say customer was on a call, I have a demo call or calls to take. Those are black and white. I have to be on that at a time. Is that I am going to start just wake up. I'm just gonna work. I'm still gonna consistently try to gym 5 6 times a week. I think that's very important. But like I'm just gonna work until I'm tired and I'm going to sleep whenever I'm tired. And if I want to go snowboard today because I worked 2 weeks in a row and I'm feeling unsharp, I'm gonna go do that. Like I think that kind of comes with a hustle culture too. Is that like here's a structure, you have to hit those certain deadlines consistently, consistently. No, I know I'm going to work. I love my work. If I want to work for the next 14 days, I'm going to do that. Huh? While let's say I'm on my eighth day, I can tell I'm getting not sharp right now. Let me just take a day off. Or let's say I'm working right now and it's 3 p.m. Huh, I'm kind of tired. I realize that, wow, I haven't been sleeping much. Let me go take a nap now. A lot of times, just really trusting your body just tell you, you know? When I was younger too, I'm just like, I gotta keep working. I gotta stay in this schedule. And then I end up getting too tired and I gotta like sleep. I thought I had a caffeine addiction. I didn't. I was just consistently too tired. And when I took like 3, 4 days off, I was sleeping like 12 hours a day. And I was like, oh, wow, like, no wonder I need to drink coffee every day. But it's like just listen to your body really. If you have the freedom to listen to your body, if it's your own company, we're a small company right now, so there's more freedom to. I'm just gonna work until I'm tired and wake up and do it again. Or sometimes if I want to do something else, I gotta do something else. Like I know myself well enough to do that rather than sticking to a consistent schedule. Why? Because I want to please my own ego. Because you want to stick to that schedule so it makes yourself feel good. But do you feel good? Do you sit back and ask yourself, am I feeling good right now? Fuck the schedule. Right? Unless you have a call to take, just chill. If you have to chill, work until you're tired, and once you're recharged, get back to work. Because you're not a lazy person, you probably wouldn't have that problem
I
to
agree.
not work.
I completely agree. I need to take that framework and that mindset a lot more. Like my weekends, like I pick and choose if I work on Saturdays. I don't work on Sundays, but the past like 10 weeks, weekends, which is what 48 hours, a freaking long time. In my feeling, not my feelings. In my head, it doesn't even feel like a weekend. I'm like, dude, I still need rest. I wake up on Monday, I'm like, oh my goodness, that weekend, that Saturday and Sunday was not even enough, and
Yeah,
that's a challenge I'm going through.
and you should sleep more, man. You know what I mean? Like just rest up a day until you feel good. Like until you don't want to get to a point where you're just too tired. And I used to do that all the time, man. Like and from my experience as I get older, I'm like, why am I doing this? And it's not me being lazy. I know when I'm being lazy and when I'm not being lazy. And I think I would like to say I'm more of a type A type of person. I think you are too. I don't think that really comes to be a problem. Is that like that's a key thing about taking advice too. You shouldn't take every advice. A lot of times the social media advice is to work harder, but that's a dangerous advice because you don't need to hear that. You don't need to work harder. You need to recharge more sometimes, right? So just work until you're tired. Like I'm a like right now I don't even set alarm clock. I naturally wake up between 6:30 to 7:30, but I just let myself wake up. And when I'm up, I'm up. My body knows when I'm not tired. If I sleep till 8:30 one day, unless obviously if I have meetings or calls I gotta take, I gotta get up for that. I'll let myself sleep till 8:30 because my body needs it and that's healthy.
Damn, that is some freedom. I've truly, and I'll say it right now, I became not a slave, but I became a worker. Like everything that I've tried to escape from being like a 9 to 5er or going to a job and running a cashier, it's like I'm back into this mode in my business, which I love, right? But I'm still like working and working and working, and it feels like I'm a slave to my work. So right now, in this stage, me and my brother were going through like this growth together because we're both in this hustle mode. And we have our mentors telling us one thing and we agree with them and we're going to take them on it. And we're just going to focus on physiology first. And they showed us something from that was made way back, which was Maslow's hierarchy. And I don't know all the hierarchies, but the first one is physiology. And when you become physiologically healthy, then the next thing gets better, and you get better there, and the next thing gets better, the next thing, and then you're finally like your best self at the top.
Mhm.
So like right now, I'm focusing on 3 meals a day, 4 waters. I should be having more, at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep, and getting my workout in the morning.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I'm going through. Those are my struggles. What I know you have something to say, and then after you answer, I want to hear your struggles right now as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think Connor also question everything though. It's kind of like we talk about mentorship advice and different things like that, right? Like, I used to be like, oh, I need to eat breakfast, and like I used to think that all the time. And I'm like, oh, breakfast I'll have eggs. Why? Who who invented like breakfast? You should have eggs and you should eat breakfast. The egg company, like they, of course they like that. Who said you got to give out flowers on Valentine's Day? The flower company, like they, of course they will want that, right? So I think there are certain, again, like laws of life, right? Like as in like some people need, I think majority, 99% of us need to sleep like 7 to 8 hours. When you get older, maybe six. So those are kind of like you see consistently. You gotta stay hydrated. You gotta drink enough water. You know those are certain laws of life. I've been fasting. I love fasting. Some people don't fast. Some people say 3 meals a day. I'm gonna test out something else. Maybe I don't need 3 meals a day. Some people say you should weightlift. Maybe you don't like weightlifting. Then don't weightlift. Go play soccer, right? Like, I think it's very important to question some of those things that are optional too, and make them easy on you, and fit those things into your life, rather than because this person told me to do this, I need to do this. Don't do it because I told you to do it. You should still question it, try it out, and if you like it, then keep it. Like, for example, a law I do believe is that we should all do physical activity. We all feel better. But maybe someone doesn't like to pump iron, they don't like to run or anything, but they like to go on walks. That's a physical activity. They're walking. That's great. They should keep walking. Maybe someone likes biking, maybe someone likes swimming. Who am I to tell them which in particular activity to choose? As long as you're maybe being an hour active outside a day, I think that is something that's important for a lot of us that we should follow, you know?
I like that, and I'll take that. I'll take that with a grain of salt, and I'll see if, because it's this new. It started last week where I'm 3 meals a day and like actually trying to focus on it. And I'm seeing some progress, but we'll just have to see how it
Yeah.
goes in the long run.
Yeah, try it out, you know? Doesn't hurt to not try it out, right?
As an entrepreneur, Will, right now, 24 years old, with Ryan Bailey, what are the struggles, not in terms of operations, but like what are the struggles that you're going through um, consistently, and it's something that you know you're going to get over eventually, but it's been on your mind?
Yeah, I think the first struggle I think majority of us entrepreneurs run into, and I think it kind of contradicts the personality, right? Is I am very impatient, you know. But you know, like one of my favorite mentors always say, he never met any, like every successful person's impatient. You gotta kind of have something patient with you, right? So you know, I'm trying to be patient with the results, but I'm also an impatient person. I'm like, when is it gonna come? But you know, that is the mindset I'm trying to adopt more. Is that be patient with the results, but impatient with my actions. So every single day, I do what I can to the best of my abilities. I think we all want it fast, but knowing that you have certain limitations and sometimes things just takes time, right? So that's just something I have to come to terms with, is that like I'm building my toolkit, I'm getting better as a developer, my team's getting better. We make a lot of different mistakes, but you know we got to be patient because that is like part of growing. So I think that's probably the most challenging part, just being patient. And because I do believe that we are doing the right thing, or else we wouldn't be doing this, right? So we're doing the right action. It just, when is it gonna come? When is it gonna come? It's not like school, that okay, I'll graduate in 3 more months. Oh, this big test coming, the results will come out in a week. You don't know, right? So that is I think the hardest part right now mentally.
The uncertainty and just the impatience. And I like that. I said that at the beginning. We need to be impatient in doing the good things, because the
Hmm.
input is a lot more greater than the output, and the input is what makes the output. Because at the end of the day, success, money, glory, celebrations, it's a lagging indicator. So like what we're
Yeah.
doing right now, even though we're not making 10K this week, that 10K is going to arrive a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. But that 10K was not made in that month that it came, right?
Hmm.
That 10K was made in this month at this certain time. So I like that, and that's kind of how I just look at it. It's all lagging indications. So we just have to keep
Oh yeah.
going.
Definitely. Yeah. What's it called? I guess I'll add on to that. As a lot of times it's like you're we say like, oh wow, what a lucky break he got, right? But you don't know what he did to get that lucky break. And I think I tell you this all the time, is like success is preparation meets opportunity, right? It's like
Hmm.
I think you want to be prepared, you know what I mean? And I think another analogy I like a lot, again, I saw on Instagram recently, is that the red car analogy, right? Is that like that's kind of how, right now, if me and you are driving, let's say you drove to work, I can ask you, how many red cars do you see today? You'll be like, oh, I'm not sure. But if I went back in time and asked you that question, you'd probably be spotting on purpose. And that's kind of how luck is. Not every car is red, but if you're actively looking for it, you will spot it if you're prepared.
Completely. You have to look for what you want, right? And the more
Hmm.
you look, the more you'll find. I like that. I
Hmm.
just got in my sermon last week at church, he said miracles are real and miracles are happening everywhere, but we're not looking for them. That's why we don't see them. But if
Exactly.
we're looking for miracles, if we're trying to pray for miracles to happen, they're going to happen because obviously God is real. But it's because they're happening all the time. We're just not focused on it. We're not looking at it. We're not prioritizing it. So I really like that point. What is something that's what are some traits that a younger entrepreneur needs to have? Despite what we're talking about mindset. We've talked about discipline. We've talked about failing fast. We talk about doing the hard stuff right now. We're talking about the input. What are a couple other things that you would say would have made you a better entrepreneur at the start if you were to do it again?
Interesting question. Let me think about this real quick, right? I think naiveness, I'm not gonna say is bad because I think sometimes you gotta be a little naive to go into it. If we all knew how hard it was, I don't know if the younger self of me would have done it, right? I think obviously grit, but I'm not gonna go into that. I think that's a common one we always talk about. You gotta have grit. I think a low ego. I keep talking about it, right? Like have a lot of humility, because I think a lot of times people do this entrepreneurship stuff to look good among their peers, right? But having a lot of humility allows you to focus on the real things, and allows number one for you to work better with other people because you shouldn't think you're better than other people, right? And number two is that it helps you make better decisions because you're not like, my ego's hurt. So you got to recognize when your ego's in the way and just take a step back and be like, okay, no, I'm actually going to focus on the mission right here. I'm not going to debate with my team members. I'm going to discuss, because debating is bad, because it's not like I want my point to get across. I want the best point to get across. I want the correct point to get across. And I think a lot of times ego is what kills teams, ego is what kills civilizations, and egos are a lot of times what kills startups. Because majority of the time, if you're going to start a business, you're probably going to work with another person. Some people do solo businesses, but I think majority of us will eventually work with others, especially as you scale and different things like that. And having a low ego and being able to be a person that understands other people's perspective. Because a lot of times, man, me and Ryan and I will be discussing something, and I'll be like, no, that's wrong. And Ryan will be, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, let me think about this again. And I'm like, oh no, you're actually a genius. I was wrong. It happens a lot. You can ask Ryan. It happens all the time, and he kind of just lets me sit there and think a little bit because he knows that I'm gonna come around to it because he's pretty confident with his point. But like, let's say if I have a high ego or if Ryan has a high ego, then we never would have been able to get the correct point across because now I'm like tippy toeing. I'm not gonna hurt his feelings. And then guess what? We move slow. We don't end up moving because I'm like, how do I get across? Now you have a bunch of infighting. So I think having a lot of humility goes a long way, and I think that is what a lot of the entrepreneurs need to have.
Wonderful. Guys, if you guys are watching this, that's a huge point that I was challenged with as well when my brother came into the business. So guys, take that and use it. Before we end it off, I want to get this question out of you, or this answer out of you. So you're in a partnership business. You're working with a couple guys. I also am working with my brothers, and I honestly, when I started, I wanted it to be myself. I wanted to be that solopreneur. But when Alec came on board, I was like, oh my goodness, we are moving fast. We are so much stronger. We have so much willpower. We have so much more information. There's an abundance of everything. How has that experience been for you, going from solopreneur to having your best friends being your business partners?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's been amazing. I think a big thing that we always think about when we start working is that we feel alone, right? You know what I mean? Like you feel alone, and then I have heard a lot of people that are successful solo founders, but I think you just got to really pulls out the pros and cons in your situation, right? The pro of working with a team is that a lot of times you can delegate, you can do things together faster, and you can be better, right? And another pro is that you don't you feel less alone. So I think that's a big part because like a lot of time feeling alone is a scary feeling. I'm on this journey alone, and when I start working with Ryan and Gyan, like I didn't feel alone anymore. I'm like, okay, like let's say if we have this issue right, I can discuss with Ryan, even though if shit hits the fan, I at least have someone there I can discuss with. And the third one I think is just having like a whiteboard, like someone to talk to really discuss ideas, really help me as an individual. And you're like, oh, why don't you discuss with a friend? Well, the friend doesn't have skin in the game, and they probably don't care as much as you. So when you actually discuss with a business partner, we come up with the best solutions possible because, well, at least to my belief, is that he also has skin in the game. So he will give me the best feedback and he will pay the most attention to my problems, right? The cons is that not too much with our team right now, knock on wood. I think a lot of times people talk about is drama, right? Is drama like you might like infighting. That happens a lot. And the second one is that sometimes you got to make sure expectations are clear. Let's say like this task that me and Ryan were just doing right now. I thought that like, oh, he should know this already, but maybe Ryan had a different upbringing. He's like, oh, we didn't know this, and vice versa. There probably are so many moments Ryan's like, Will, how do you not know this? And I'm like, well, I didn't know it. So you got to make sure you communicate those things in the right way. And then the other person again needs to have humility to take the feedback. Because sometimes Ryan will give me feedback and I'm like, ugh, fuck, I don't want to hear that, but I know I have to hear it because he's right. But you see, because of having, I guess this can be a pro too as well, right? It can be annoying when I guess you got to point out other people's flaws and uncomfortable, right? But it's also healthy because when they point it out for you, you notice those things. Because as a solo founder, I never would have known these flaws. So I also develop it as a person because again, we like to think we're perfect, but we're not. I'm far from perfect, and I'm grateful my co-founders point things out to me and help me understand what I'm not good at and different things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I'm on the same boat as you. All those things are so loud in my business, especially with my brothers. Like, we're pointing each other out. We're making sure that we're all making the right decision. We all have fiduciary duty to do the right thing for the business, not for us emotionally. And I think it's just so powerful when you have a couple minds together. There's so much more you could do with just one brain, with two brains rather than just one brain. I like that a lot. I have every single podcast. I have the initial person who, or this current one, ask the next person a question, and I got one from my friend Cheyenne Breezy, who I just did a podcast with last week. He wanted to ask this question to you, Will. What is the hardest task of your day, and how does that task make you make you more capable? That's what he says. How does that task make you more capable?
Hardest task of the day, huh? Usually. Well, I think it really depends on what's on the to do list, but I think the hardest tasks are the things I don't like to do in the business. So I like to do certain things. I like to talk to customers. I like to program. I like to kind of paint, I don't know, try to see what the direction, what idea we're doing, talk to my co founders. I like a lot of these stuffs that a lot of times people don't like to do. What I don't like is that I don't like doing the financial books. I don't like to just read a lot of reports and different things like that. I think I'm maybe more big vision. I'm like, I don't want to go into the nitty gritty. But a lot of times the nitty gritty is what hurts me a lot. So the hardest task for me is to do the tasks that I don't like to do until the point I can hopefully outsource the majority of those tasks so I can just focus on what I love to do so my overall life quality goes up. So I think that depends on the person, but for me it's just doing the books, it's kind of looking in the details more and different things like that because like I'm kind of just on a different wavelength sometimes to say the least.
I love that. I'm on the same thing. I just did some bookkeeping, and oh my goodness, I didn't know how to run business, so I was using personal accounts to buy business stuff for a long time, and then I got my business account. So there was literally like 3, 4 different accounts in our bookkeeping. It was freaking terrifying. It
And
sucked, but I know
it's like yeah.
it made me better.
Yeah, it's a first time business owner mistake, right? I think that it happens. Sometimes you're just like, but you also make the argument if you were just so nitty gritty, like would you have the courage to just go? Sometimes you just gotta go, you know what I mean? Fuck it, I'll figure the rest out later. Obviously, again, take good risk. And this is the mistake you can still fix right now. But like imagine you focus so much on the nitty gritty in the beginning, like do you really have the capacity for it and do you have the energy for that? Like probably not,
Exactly. Well, Will, I really appreciate you for coming on here. You dropped so many bars. There's so much game in here to watch, listen, and reflect on. Before I let you go, can you just drop one more gem for anyone who's still here watching? Um, Anything. It could be business, life, mindset, whatever is going through your mind. Tell us.
Yeah, I think for me at least, I guess I'll speak to a college audience. I guess is that I think a lot of people say, but remember, if you love something, you're doing it. Expect the results to come later, and be patient with it, but patient with your actions because a lot of times I think college spoils us, especially with a high achiever. You expect things to come quickly because in a 30,000 or 50,000 kid environment, in that environment, you can climb the ranks very quickly. But when you get to the real world, when you start your business, you're competing with guys that's been doing years above ahead of you. It doesn't mean they're more talented than you, but sometimes again, that's kind of the theme of the podcast. We always talk about the experiences come in, right? Someone been doing longer for you, they're probably gonna be better than you at it because they learn more things than you. So you gotta be patient. You gotta be patient, and you just gotta do the work every day. It's not a sprint. I think a lot of times young people, especially, I think because of social media, what we see on the hustle culture and everything like that, we think if we just sprint this thing, we can be done. You gotta buckle in, man. It's a whole journey. It's a whole marathon you're running here. So buckle in, have fun, enjoy the journey, and it's okay if you end up not liking it. You can go do something else, but always just expect the results to come later because a lot of times things takes time.
Wonderful. I agree with all of that. And Will, this was an excellent podcast, and I love our conversation. And we're going to have to talk more after. But guys, thank you very much. Nice to see you. Have a good rest of your night. God bless.